Hi, everyone. Nice to see everyone after such a long time. Really excited about this conversation we're going to have today. And of course, it's going to be about COVID, our COVID-19 experiences. And since you are the real members of the citizens, the so-called founders of the citizens, I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say about your experiences and some of the things that you've been through, right, for the past 6 months. So I'm just gonna we're just gonna have a relaxed conversation, and let's just share some of the things that we feel, and let's see how the conversation goes. I hope we're all cool with that.
Yes, we are.
Sounds great.
Okay, so I'll start with our diaspora representative. Yeah, because apparently this was not the year of return; it was the year of yeah,
I'm getting stuck.
it was the year of COVID. And since Martel is in the diaspora, we just want to know, Martel. So when COVID, became a reality out there, what was the feeling? How did people respond? What were you thinking? What were you going through at that time? If you could just share with us.
Sure. So for me, it was actually very interesting because I'm based in Europe. So I was monitoring the situation here. But of course, my immediate family, my parents and my siblings are in the US, and the rest of my family is in Senegal. So I was doing this ninja thing where I was going on all websites and looking at the graphs of all three countries and just trying to understand. So it picked up here first, I must say, after sort of it left China and came in Italy. Then, of course, around this area, it got really serious, especially where we live, actually, across the border from Switzerland, France area. And so, it was quite scary. At first, we had to go on lockdown fairly quickly. But thank God we were able to work from home, and it didn't really affect any of our working situation and the setup. And then once I heard about the first case in Senegal, I started getting really worried because I knew that the way we were able to sort of hunker down and stay at home here in Europe would not be as easy in Senegal, in a context like Senegal. And then it started getting serious cases rising in the US, the East Coast of the US, which is where my family is. And again, I got even more worried. And so for me, it's gotten much better 6 months later here. Life is pretty much back to normal, except that we have to wear masks and physically distance ourselves from each other. But aside from that, it's okay. The situation in Senegal is also fairly stable. I think the fact that the population there is quite young is helpful. So even when they get the virus, it's not as serious as it is, for example, here. But in the US, it's another story. And the challenge for me is just not knowing when I'm going to be able to see my family again, when we're going to be able to travel. My mom actually had a trip here planned in April, and that was canceled. And just all of these things that, we were planning for are not. But for me, I'm just thankful that, we're healthy. Nobody in my immediate family, in my immediate circle had the virus. And so that's at this point the most important, really. So.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Martel. So what about you, Chamrid? With you staying in one country and your family in another country, what's been going through your mind, and what are some of the challenges that you've been facing?
Sorry, is it me? My internet went off at the point.
Yeah. Then we know that we are back in Africa. We're back. But anyway, I was saying, Chamrid, that, knowing that you work in one country and your family is in another country, even though we are all in West Africa, how has the experience been being away from your family during this time, of COVID-19? Yeah.
So since the beginning, I think even before the government of Ghana decided to install a lockdown in Accra and Kumasi, we had the chance to start working remotely. So even when COVID has started, everything was quite okay. We were working remotely, and I was just monitoring the cases. But as you mentioned, concerning my family, which was in Benin, it was a source because of worry. I was always checking how were they doing and stuff like this, but they were quite doing well. Yeah, but my only issue is the fact that some member of my family had medical condition, and with COVID happening, it was very difficult for them to access some medicines, some care that they are used to. That was the major cause of worry, because even to go to the hospital, they were not able to, and you have to get to be creative, check within your network who can access this drug and who can make it available. That was my major issues. Aside that, everything went well, and we were just protecting ourselves and seeing how this COVID will be going.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Chami. So, Mami, how has your COVID experience been? I think out of all of us, you and maybe Martel have been more MIA. So I'm looking forward to hearing what has happened in the past 6 months. Yeah.
Well, I think that COVID has changed a lot of things. In the beginning of the year, I didn't anticipate that things would turn out this way 6 months, and it affected a lot of things. For example, it changed even our health system, in the sense that, for example, in April, my dad was rushed to the hospital, and then you could see that even the frontliners themselves didn't know what to do concerning the COVID. Everything that came their way, they treated it as if it was a COVID situation. You wouldn't know the sensitization they went through, but even they, as frontliners, weren't empowered enough to tackle the situation. Where I had friends who were doctors who were willing to give up because they weren't given enough PPEs to work with. So the dynamics have really, a lot of things have been affected. And even in Ghana, the citizens, like Shamid mentioned, during lockdown, you find during the lockdown, people had parties. They didn't really fully grasp what the seriousness of the matter. And even now, you go on Instagram, you go on Twitter, and it's as if COVID-19 is no longer in existence, where people are not respecting social distancing, where people are not even wearing their masks. You see, for example, I pick Ubers and I ask the driver, "Where's your mask?" It's like, and then he goes like, "Oh, I have to wear my mask." And it's amazing. So a lot of things have changed, and Africans as we are, when things happen in the beginning, we scramble to get excited. Oh, COVID-19, and then as it goes along the line, we lose
Yeah.
the sense of it and we lose what we are supposed to do. So it's changed things. For example, you have to go to church or you have to go out and you have this mask. Maybe the place is stuffy and hot and you can't breathe, or you have to constantly remind someone that we can't hug, we can't shake. You have to be away from me for a while. And it's changed culturally. It's changed how we do things. Even when you go for social functions, how you greet people. And for me, it's also affected a lot of things. For example, being unable to travel, being having to work remotely most of the time. It's changed a lot of things that it's difficult to put in words, but my life has been affected in different ways than I ever imagined. But 6 months down the line, I think that life for others have come back to normal. You constantly have to remind people that, hey, coronavirus is still very much a part of our lives. So in a nutshell.
Yeah. Thanks, Mami. Thanks, Mami. And she said something that I think is really profound. She said our lives have all changed one way or the other, whether we want to accept it or not. So, Joel, you're in Guinea. Yeah, you've gone back home. You were in Ghana. So, first of all, did you expect COVID? Are you one of those who could see it coming? Because I haven't met any person like that yet. And secondly, how has your experience been with COVID in Guinea specifically?
Well, let me answer your question. I didn't expect COVID, right? And there's something I was not expecting, and it would have been good if COVID was not around. Great. And I also think it was great for me to come back to the country before COVID started, right? At least I was able to settle a little bit before the COVID, because I remember I have spent already 6 to 7 months before COVID started, which was a little bit good for me. Yeah, because actually, as Mami just said, COVID has affected our life and has affected our way of doing, and even the hospitality that we have in Africa was affected by the COVID. Because I remember when it started, it was a total panic. Everybody was panic. The medical body was panic. politicians were panic, and
Yeah.
Christians, religious, Muslim, everyone, like it was a total panic, because this was the first time we're experiencing this. And the fact that it affected the whole world at the same time, it was also a new thing that the whole world is experiencing. Sometimes you have diseases that, like Ebola was in West Africa, it affected 3 countries, which is different, because from that you get even support from other countries. But if all the countries are affected at the same time, it become a global issue. So everybody try to deal with his own problem, which may look like being selfish, but you want to take care of yourself before you look at somebody else. Is that so? That was another way it affected us, because in Guinea we remember when the Ebola started, we have a very good experience in managing uh, epidemic and pandemic because of the Ebola, right? And the fact that we received support to deal with Ebola at that time, it was a little bit good for us to get that experience. But this time with COVID, even the people who are supposed to support you financially to deal with the situation were facing more difficult. Like when you see France, you see UK, you see US, they were having a serious issue, which make them focus their financial direction to how to manage COVID in their own country. It actually affected. And as I was saying, even the hospitality, before, when you are a diaspora, and that's why I'm saying it was good for me to be in the country before. Before you are a diaspora and you come to your country, you are welcome. No, this looks funny, but it's serious, frankly speaking. You are welcome. Everybody wants to see you. He's coming from abroad. But when COVID started, no one wanted to get closer to anyone coming from abroad. Yeah. So when you come from abroad, you have to hide, right? So the discrimination was so high. And because people knew that it started outside Africa, and the people that the new cases that were discovered from in Africa was something that was brought, right? Somebody living abroad to come to Africa and is infected, and is infected. In Guinea, we know how it started. It was one person. Now we're talking about 7,000 people infected. So you see, and because of that, it was a little bit difficult to still keep that closeness with people coming from abroad. Yeah, and even coming to work, it really affected the way we work. I used to go to work every day, right, from Monday to Friday. Now I have to stay home, which I'm not used to, right? And which also affect you, because if you have to stay home, I'm someone who stay alone. I think my own even better for like than people who stay with their family and their children around. When you want to focus, you can't, because they want to play with you, and you also want to work because you have results to show. So of course, it's true that COVID affected our life, our culture. We are Christian, we are Muslim, we have to go to churches, we have to go to mosques to pray, then the mosques are closed, the churches are closed, you have to pray home. I don't even know how pastors were getting their tithe, right?
Really? Really?
Yeah, opening a Pandora's box.
Mobile money.
That's
Somebody said
another
mobile money. Anyway.
mobile money, great. That would have been good then. So actually speaking, at the beginning, Guinea, as I said, there was some panic, and even somebody talk about something having access to medicine. There's sometimes that came, we wanted to get chloroquine. You remember the history around behind chloroquine when it
Yes, yes.
started?
Yeah, sure.
So trust me, I visited like almost half of the clinic, like the pharmacy in Guinea. I found no chloroquine because people have bought everything. People were looking for solution. People were
We're just
looking for
taking
solution.
pills.
We were all, yeah, people were desperate, and we really needed to that would save us, because if those who are supposed to provide more solution, their medical body, and they were all confused, it was very, very scary. But I thank God this time around, we have been able to at least understand how the disease is contracted and how we can prevent ourselves from. It's difficult to be wearing a mask the whole day, and because you breathe difficultly. But of course, if that is supposed to help you, like stay away from COVID, it's better to do that. And
Yeah.
maintaining the social distancing, we try. I think it's going to change our way of doing stuff, but also going positively and negatively, because let not forget that there's some positive aspect of COVID that are also going to be used to improve our life. Yeah, I just don't want to be long. So much to say.
Juicy. Thank you, Joel. No, the thing is, for me, I remember when this thing whole started, and we had very renowned people like Mrs. Gates saying that because of their background in working on health in Africa, they felt that they predicted that there will be bodies lying in Africa, all over the place. There'll be all these deaths, right? And up to now, 6 months later, I'm not seeing too many of these bodies. So I'm just thinking, I just want to know from your perspective, why do you think the prediction about the COVID impact on Africa health-wise may not have panned out the way some people thought it would? What do you think? Is it just grace, like we say in the Christian circles? Or maybe our health systems are not as poor as we thought they were? Or is it that as Africans we have strong immune systems? So I would like to know your perspectives, Martel. You being in the diaspora and you also hearing some of these things.
Yeah, it's really interesting. When this thing first started and it was picking up like wildfire here in Europe and elsewhere in Asia, and in the news, whenever we would listen to the news about updates, what's happening here, then they would do international updates, and they were always all these Africa experts. They were amazed at the rate at which, the very slow rate at which COVID-19 was picking up in Africa. You would hear about 1 case, 2, 3. It was very, very slow. And they were all amazed, and they were all getting ready, gearing up for when it would pick up, right? And what that would mean for Africa as a continent, its economy and stuff like that. And I don't know, I think it's a combination of factors. One thing that I've been thinking about a lot is just the age of our population. We compare to countries here where the majority of the population is quite old, 60 and older, whereas in Africa it's the opposite. 15 and younger is actually like the bulk of the population. Between 15 to 29 is like so I think that has something to do with it, because what the evidence shows that basically when you're much younger, the virus, even though you can contract it, it doesn't maybe affect you as deeply to the point where you need to go to the hospital or you need serious medical help. So I think that's one thing that's helped us. I'm sure there are other things, and what you mentioned about our health systems, like countries that dealt with Ebola, even though we had external help, probably put in systems in place, or even have systems in place that help them tackle these sorts of issues. So I think we were underestimated as a continent, as a people, and I think we're showing that. As usual, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you have places like Clinique Pasteur in Senegal, which is a very well known. They're even working on a vaccine. We're underestimated, and I'm glad that we're showing that we should not be. So I'm interested to hear what others think are the reasons.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So Shamrid, I mean, you've heard about the Africa CDC. You've heard about the Africa CDC and all these innovative things. So what is your take on this whole issue? The fact that you're not seeing your brothers and sisters' bodies lying about on the street.
Yeah. So I think as Martel said, there's a combination of different factors. And concerning the rate at which people are dying in Africa, I think it's also because of the fact that COVID is like, you need to have underlying factors, underlying conditions, maybe being in the case of being obese or having a heart condition for it to be deadly for you. So I think the fact that in Africa we are quite healthy as compared to other continents who are more living a modern lifestyle where the rate of obesity is higher. But I'm just guessing at this level. But concerning the way the whole structure in organized society or more developed society like Europe, US has collapsed, I think in Africa it hasn't been the case. Like if you take the analogy of a domino setting, because one piece is falling, it can collapse all the dominoes around. But in Africa, we are already disorganized. So if there's an epidemic or a pandemic outbreak somewhere, it does not necessarily affect the overall country and continent. But in Europe or in the US, everything is so connected that if one piece starts collapsing, it affects the overall system. And it brings the perspective where people are questioning the principle of globalization. Whereas in Apple factories, depending on Foxconn in China, there's an outbreak in China, they can't produce iPhone as much as they would. They are reconsidering the fact to outsource the production to China. Shouldn't we have it in the US? And so that we don't get affected by crises happening somewhere else. I think those are the questions, those are the issues which are arise out of COVID. And for once, I think we have been blessed for not being so organized as we should be. I know it's a bit controversial to think that way, but yeah, like we are used to crisis, we are used to disaster. So it happens, yeah, we continue our life. Few people will die, but it won't be that much. We continue. So
Yeah. Thanks, Chairman. I call it the blessing of organized chaos. Yeah. I guess that's
Nice
what it is.
one.
So, Mami, what's your take on this? Why do you
Well,
think it's not as bad as predicted in Africa so far? Let me put it that way.
well, I think that the West has always expected the West from Africa. And when this happened, you could read news outlets where they were surprised that, like Mattel mentioned, the cases hadn't picked up. Why? And they were trying to, like you mentioned yourself, Charles, Mrs. Gates and others were saying, oh, we are anticipating that this would happen, this percentage, these number of people died, because, like Shamid mentioned, we don't have an organized structure. However, what they forgot is that because we do not have an organized structure, we've always known how to manage with the chaos that we have, in the sense that we know that we do not have good health systems. And sometimes we forget that before the introduction of modern medicines, we had traditional medicines and way of curing ourselves when we are not feeling well.
The
And
Nim
people,
tree, the Nim tree.
yes, people really resorted to that. And then those in the West were actually trying to try some of the things we do, like the hibiscus flowers,
Yeah.
etc., which we are already used to, because you hear somebody saying, oh, I really, really sat down and had the steam bath from the neem tree. I really did X and Y. But as opposed to somebody going to look for chloroquine, we already had various
The
traditional
traditional
methods.
one.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah.
but
And
hibiscus flowers, isn't it Sobolo?
Yeah,
what?
hibiscus, that's
Yeah,
sobolo.
it's
Yeah.
Obolo.
Oh,
Yes.
okay,
It's a
okay.
And they drink it too. You can even bath with it.
Green.
Oh, really?
Sanitizer, the original sanitizer.
But there are a lot of uses for that. And so we figured out how to manage. And let's not forget that in the past, and if you check history, Africa has always been hit by certain plagues, pandemics that has sort of toughened us. We've had Ebola, we've had SARS. We always in the north now, the meningitis is very much still ongoing.
Mm,
So
mm.
we've always had certain pandemics that have toughened us as a people, our mentality, etc. Where you hear people say, "Oh, Corona can't kill me." I mean, we've seen it all. So it is. It is quite pitiful, or for somebody to try and underestimate us when we've been through it all. Ebola hits West Africa, and today we rose above it. Even Ghana, we weren't affected by it. We found ways to curtail the measures, and they didn't really think of it thoroughly to say, "Oh, these people have been through it." I mean, all the days from slavery where we hit with various difficult situations and we overcame all these things. So it's not going to happen. And in as much as we've had a lot of cases in Ghana, I dare say that we've curtailed it more than anybody in the West would. Ghana has taken preventive measures that if you go to the US, you wouldn't see those preventive measures. You see videos of people in the US fighting the fact that they have to wear a face mask to enter a store. Where in Ghana, people actually really have adopted the idea. Yes, some don't wear it, but they know, for instance, that when you're entering a building, you would wash your hands. If not, you would sanitize, you would wear your face mask. So we are people who adapt easy, and we find very innovative ways, like the West refuses to recognize, to tackle our own issues. And like Joel said, we realize that, hey, we are all facing this at once, so nobody's coming to our aid as usual. So let us find our own methods. Let us name tree ourselves. Let us hibiscus
Ah,
ourselves with
thank you.
various methods. And it has worked. If you look at the cases all across the region, it has worked. Our cases, even though there are countries like South Africa who have high cases, in across the region, when you trace it, it's not as high as, even America is still battling with high cases of corona, even though they don't want to keep the data anymore and pay attention to it. We've tackled it better than you. You come to our airports, even those who are repatriated, and the measures you go to an American airport now, and certain measures have not been taken. I mean, they won't let you sanitize your hands overly and do certain things. They would even, I mean, the president even sometimes doesn't see the need for a face mask. So, but in Ghana, you see very top officials wearing face masks as to encourage others to do it. So we've adopted. We learn on the go, because we realize that our systems, like Shamid mentioned, it's a survival of the fittest. If you don't help yourself, no politician is going to help you. Nobody's going to help you. So you better find a solution. That's what we've done, and that's why the cases were not as glorified as people expected that they would be.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. You mentioned something very important there, the innovations that have come out of this COVID experience. Because I've seen a lot of young entrepreneurs creating things like hand washing basins that uses solar power
Yeah.
and other innovations just to facilitate people so they can follow these protocols.
Mhm.
So Joel, in Guinea, have there been innovations like that? Have you seen these kind of innovations? And what do you think about what we've been discussing about the fact that Guineans are not lying all over the streets? I like that emphasis, lying on the street. Yeah.
Great, great. It's true that Guineans are not lying on the street. And yeah, there have been innovation, frankly speaking. And actually, that's why I was saying that the COVID has a positive aspect, because the positive aspect is that this has shown that our youth have innovative ideas and they can really do something if they get the right support, right?
Yeah.
Because the stuff that people has bring on board here, you can imagine, like you have no idea about it. If the brief, I don't know how you call it, but in French we call the machine respiratoire, the breathing machine, right? When somebody is actually they are
The
having
oxygen.
difficulty to breathe.
The
Yeah, the
oxygen.
oxygen,
Ventilators.
exactly. Great. So
Yeah.
this is something that has been manufactured locally here by youth in Guinea, and the
Wow.
hospitals are using, which is amazing. If COVID wasn't around, you wouldn't have seen anything like that. So I think that's one of the positive aspects. And coming to the reason why we're not seeing Guineans laying down dead body in the street everywhere, I think is actually the different factors that come into that. And just like Mata, Shamrid, and Mami said, there's different factors. And yeah, we have a young population, it's true. And we should also not forget that actually we took good measures. And Africa was one of the first continents to took some dramatic measures ahead before even we have cases of COVID in our countries, which was good because you could go to airport and they have some serious stuff that you go through when the country has no cases by then. So we took it seriously because it's true when Shamri said we are too much disorganized that it has helped us because we knew that no, yeah, because we knew that we don't have a good quality health system, right? And we know our health system is poor. So when we have several cases, we cannot accommodate them. So better deal with how to stop like having more cases than dealing with the cases. So which was very very good. And I think that's one of the good thing dictatorship has brought to us in Africa because our yeah our people force people to respect, like our leaders force people to respect the barrier measures. If you don't wear a mask, you are fined, you pay. If you don't pay, they can keep you for some time, which was good. I even saw some video. Badly, it's sad that people have to use some strength or forces to physically discipline some people, which is very bad. But of
Yeah.
course, the result is they are disciplined and there's nobody lying down on the street, which is good.
True.
Right? So that's why
I
I'm
don't
saying
know. I'm not sure human rights people will agree with you,
they
but
want to agree with me. I understand. They want to agree with me. That's exactly the chaos about Africa, right? we have we have issue and we have our way dealing with our issue. And I actually understand that the fact that we took some good measures before even COVID started spreading around Africa, that really helped us a lot. Because I remember in my country we were having like not up to 7 cases, and they informed that everybody should be wearing a mask. It was an obligation to wear a mask. If you don't wear a mask, you'll be fine. And they closed all the churches, they closed the drinking bars, they closed the nightclub, they even like closed the supermarket, and they accepted that social distancing to be respected. Because we knew that if we start taking those measures to prevent the spread of COVID in the country, it will be an advantage for us. I think that's what people were not expecting Africa to do. And that's exactly what we did. We took some dramatic measures to be able to prevent COVID to spread in the country like it was going. Because trust me, the way our health system is poor, if we were to have several, like more cases in Africa and we don't have the facility to accommodate and treat those people, what they predicted would have been something that we have been seeing in Africa. But thank God we because we don't have, we are afraid and we take some measures ahead to be able to prevent what is bad. Yeah.
yeah, thanks for that, Joel. No, I'm encouraged by how Africa we've really tried our best to manage. At least most countries have really tried their best with the tracing, the testing, with the treatment as much as possible. I remember Madagascar, even though it ended up in a fiasco, but at least, you know, I mean, for lack of a better phrase, but at least there's an attempt, and I like what Martel said in Senegal. What's happening with the vaccine trials, with the in Ghana, Guinea, and other countries, the young guys creating those respiratory machines and all that, and all these innovations that we are seeing, and it shows that we have it. We have what it takes, and it's, of course, necessity is the mother of all inventions, really, and it's proving that. And now there's a huge debate about, well, Africa, we've never really benefited from the globalization. So it looks like COVID is telling us that we should localize, right? But then the Asians are also cautioning us that they actually became who they were, the Singapores, the Malaysias, the Indonesias, because of globalization, taking advantage of globalization. So they are cautioning us that we shouldn't just throw away globalization, right? So I just want your perspectives on this whole localization versus globalization debate. How do you think we should take advantage? What has COVID shown us? How should we go about it, Martel?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah, very interesting question.
One of the things, Joel, I think what you mentioned is so important. We shouldn't forget that we took preventive measures that got us here. At the same time, though, I think in a few months and into early next year, we will see some of the consequences and how it has affected our economies as countries.
True.
Exactly.
A country like Senegal, many of our countries, tourism, for example, is huge. It's a big portion of our economy. And the fact that our airports were closed and that people could not come in or leave the country for a period of almost 2 months is going to hit us. And the fact that the country pretty much came to a standstill, and people who usually wake up every single day and go look for their daily wages were not able to do that for a period of time. That's going to have economic repercussions. And we're going to see that. We've already started seeing that. There are already predictions, we'll see, but the growth that we were expecting, I think around 6.7% for this year, is already curtailed. We're rather around 4.2, something like this. And these are numbers that we haven't seen since the early 2000s in West Africa. In countries like Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Nigeria. So the localized versus globalization debate, I mean, the fact that we rely so heavily on countries like India for our medicine, right? And countries like China for so many things, and of course the West, with these countries that, the countries that colonize us and that we have these historical relationships with. And people were so worried about, and we didn't have in Senegal, for example, some medicine for diabetes that comes from India, because rightfully so, they were worried about their own people first, right? So rather than sending us what we needed, they were going to make sure that they had enough. And the gross dependency that we have on these countries just became so apparent. I'm not sure that we can sort of step back or backtrack at this particular point and not participate in the global economy. I don't think this is realistic. At the same time, I think there's something to be said about relying on these innovations that we're seeing from especially young people in the continent, our talent, getting our institutions to be stronger, having our governments be stronger, not in the dictatorship sense, but in the sort of negotiating at the global level sense, is going to be important going forward. And tapping into the local talent, for sure. We have to do this. We cannot just continue in this path of asking for. We really have to take a step back. I think this is a great opportunity at this particular point with everything that's happened, and see sort of where we can go from here, looking locally, but we cannot backtrack and say we're not going to participate in the global economy. This is, to me, not realistic, and also would not do us good. I don't think it's a solution. So.
Yeah. Thanks, Martel, for that. Mami, what are your thoughts about that? The localization, globalization debate.
Martel has made some very salient points that I think I'll just borrow on. It would be very unwise for us to think that with our history of over reliance on the West or on the global economy for a lot of things, if you come to our curtail of malaria, if you come to this projects that we have, to think that, well, because COVID came and we were able to solve our issues, that would be the way long term. Looking at even how Ghana has shut down its borders for the last 4 to 5 months, we have suffered gravely. Our economy has suffered from the lack of tourism or the lack of flights coming in because the airports are giving a certain quota from the tickets that are bought. And even during the lockdown, we realized that the government had to be giving people food. And I've forgotten the amount we paid. It was about 5 million Ghana cedis. We spent a chunk of our money trying to sort ourselves out. Where did that money come from? It definitely was dipped from somewhere where we would have to pay for. And so I think we need to find a balance between localization and globalization, where in the past we were focused heavily on globalization, but now we realize that, hey, we have things internally we can work on. For example, there are a lot of innovations. This Mandela Washington Fellow Lord Basing was able to come up with this, how do you call this corona test kit that is instant, and that got some weight here. We then realized that there are people who have the capacity to do these things here. Like you mentioned, these solar panels, hand washing basins. And in the beginning, when this whole thing hit the world, there weren't enough face masks. China was sorting itself out, the place we usually get our products from. So Ghanaians had to figure out how to do face masks, and now you see people wearing an attire and trying to match with their face mask. And even how people in Ghana now the local companies had to come together and figure out to make sanitizers. And then you could see people, local enterprises coming together. A company like Casapreco came out to do this hand sanitizer, and it was amazing. You would stop to think that, oh, so we can actually do these things when we put ourselves to it. So it would be good for us to actually probe into the talents like we have and hone the skills, but then it will be very far-fetched and too ambitious if we think that we can no longer participate in the global conversation, because however they still have a lot of things and resources we need to borrow into our organized chaos in order to structure our organized chaos to become more structured. We need it also sometimes to keep us in line. We are very much aware of how sometimes our how do you call it, our politicians and our leaders try to do certain things their own way, but then when they form part of these conversations, it sort of serves as a guide and as a guideline for them to be in shape and be what it's supposed to be. So I feel like there should be a balance. We should no longer overly rely on the on globalization, but we should also not undermine ourselves or underestimate ourselves. Looking at how we've coped very much for the last 6 months, how we've been able to do it, but we should think that, hey, even we should probe into the local things. How are we going to use these to resurrect our economies? Because trust me, our economies all over the region have been affected gravely. You'd look, I am the Minister of Finance went to Parliament a while ago, and you'd realize that we still have a lot of debts. We still have a lot of money that we've spent on so much that you wonder, how is the taxpayer going to afford these things? Because eventually it comes back to us. So I feel there should be a balance. One shouldn't suffer at the expense of the other. We should have a balance where we consider both.
Yeah, thank you, Mami, for that. Joel, so what are your perspectives on this debate of localization versus globalization, especially what COVID has sort of revealed?
Yeah, thank you, Charles. I think, well, it's a good question, but look, we shouldn't let ourselves be so much proud because we've been able to manage this COVID. There's some factors that were, as you were saying, grace, all those things, right? That we've been able to manage. It will be so soon to start shouting victory, right? And think that we are so sufficient that we can fly alone, which is very wrong. The world is now becoming dynamic when we need to open up to everybody. We need a change of culture. We need a change of technology. We need a change of knowledge. There's no one who can evolve today or develop today without the others. So it will be wrong. Looking at our situation in Africa, where we're still struggling with development, to start talking about closing up and localizing instead of globalizing, it will be very, very wrong to do those kind of things. Because in French, we say personne n'évolue à vase clos, right? Meaning that you have to be connected. Is what takes us from where we are to where we are going. It's true that the COVID situation we've been able to manage in our way, but who knows what is coming next? People are predicting that this is just the beginning of a pandemic to come. That there are more pandemic to come, and are we ready for that, Africa? That's the big question. We're talking about we have a fragile economy. The economy is fragile, and it's been affected by the COVID. Who knows after COVID, how are we going to even work on our economy to take the economy to the level where we want it to be? That's another question we'll be dealing with. In Guinea, we know how when there's a COVID, priority, or when there's a crisis, people priority changes. Right now, people are more in need of a medical solution than our diamond, our bauxite, our oil, whatever. So it means that we need globalization to address stuff together. And if we're able to address stuff together with a global solution, it can benefit to everybody locally. So the solution is global, but the benefits may be local. So if you try to get a local solution, if people are affected globally, whether you like it or not, you'll be affected locally. What is one place? We have plane moving from one place to another. We have people moving. We even have our small ECOWAS, even the small globalization we have in ECOWAS, we're still struggling with that. So we're now coming to the big globalization. We want to be too much convinced that we have reached, which is bad and which is not even true. So I think it's true. We should still, but that doesn't mean that we should put away the localization. We have some benefits of local, local stuff that we still have to strengthen on, or we still have to develop more, which will also give us identity in the global world. Because when we talk about globalization, everybody goes there with an identity. So what we need to do is to strengthen our local resources and our local knowledge, whatever we have that we can show out there when we are in the global world, to be some people or country that can benefit with can benefit the globalization what we're talking about. But of course, we still have to go with that.
Yeah, thanks, Joel. Thanks, Joel. You know, Chamred, just for you, just to say a few things. People always say that, look, think local, global, right? People also say that the Asians took advantage of globalization. Look where they are now. People are also saying that the whole structure of this globalization mechanism does not work in favor of Africa, right? So people feel that it's a structural deficit, not necessarily our own deficits or our own weaknesses. That's why we're not taking advantage, right? So what are your thoughts about this whole local global? Because for me, sometimes I get confused in the various perspectives. All I know is that for me, for a country to succeed, it must have comparative advantage. It must be able to sell something that people want to buy, right? That's for me. That's how I understand these things. But I want to know your understanding.
No, I agree with you. You must have something to be able to sell it so that other people can buy. But if you sell something, use the money that you make to for you internally. Let's leverage on the globalization for the local people. Basically, that's what I think.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
just
think it's
wanted
a
to add, like when I thought about
yeah.
what you
Go
said,
ahead,
Charles,
Marcel.
about comparative advantage. I mean, let's talk about comparative advantage of African countries. If it's land, we've got it. If it's resources under that land, we've got it. From oil to diamonds to bauxite to anything that you can think of. If it's human resource, we've had it. We have it. I mean, our population is the youngest around the world. So we do have that comparative advantage. Now, leveraging that at the global level and managing that in a way that's to our advantage, that's where the situation is. The challenge is like with our leaders. But anyway, just wanted to add that.
Marcel, what I would ask is, do we even realize that we have this comparative advantage? Like how you've sat down to analyze it, I don't think many a times we feel the grass is greener on the other side, and we always underestimate ourselves. I feel we do not realize or recognize the fact that we have so much to offer on the global front that when we go to the West or when we go for these global functions, we are swallowed up because we've not identified the fact that we have an identity. Like, I'm also bringing something to the table. We only think they have something they are giving us, but like you rightly mentioned, you study the trends, you study our economies, not our economies, you study our environment, you realize that we have so much. We have the youth, we have resources. So why my question would be, and Charles, sorry to take a position as a presenter, but why do we not realize that we have this advantage, and why are we not working with this advantage?
$1 million question.
No, it's a huge question, and it's a very deep question. But I feel like, you know, as Africans, we need to do more self introspection and look at a lot of things that we do. So first of all, our governance systems, is it working for us? I don't want to say democracy, because democracy is an aspect of governance. It's not governance itself. You understand?
But why
So,
must we do democracy? Why? When we are talking about governance,
that's
why
why I
should
didn't
we
want to
say
say it, because
no?
We have
Why
it
do we
today.
say let's look at our democracy? Let's just apply principle of good governance. Whatever
yes,
the form it takes should be in place. But the
yeah.
way we are preaching democracy across, whereas other people are applying democracy as they deem fit, I think this should stop.
Yeah, this is the point. I mean, thanks, Charmy, for that. That's exactly my point. So, what kind of governance works for us? You know, the governance that we've adopted is about winner takes all. It's competitive politics. We historically, everything I've read is about consensus driven. We're consensus driven. The way our kingdoms are run, it's based on consensus. So, our values, our history does not align with what we are adopting right now. So, we need to think about that as younger people. You know, we need to challenge these constitutions, because many of our constitutions in Africa are not fit for purpose. Do you understand? They are not fit for the realities and for the future. So that's where I think the challenge needs to be. Another place we need to look at, and it's education. For me, education, right? Why isn't our education translating into a certain enlightenment that moves us ahead? Do you understand? Because I think that the education for me is too outward instead of inward. You understand? We're not looking within with the assets and the competitive advantage that we have and educating our people on those things and then finding solutions for those. We are looking outward to see, hey, what is Switzerland studying? What is France studying? What is US studying? And then we want to take our kids to those kind of schools where they go and learn how those economies work. And then, of course, they don't want to stay in Ghana anymore because what they have to apply cannot be applied in this part of the world. You see the problem, and then they go there, they get frustrated and realize that, oh my goodness, I don't have an identity here. I want to come back home. Then they have to come back home and learn again.
Reintegration.
How to reintegrate. I mean, just don't make sense. You understand? So for me, governance and education, and then one more very dicey issue. Forgive me for mentioning this. Our understanding of the purpose of religion. I think our religion is too fanfare. I think we don't know that a religion it's too fanfare. It's a social event. I think we need to understand that faith is action, faith is transformation, faith is change. Period. So if you're going to become a Christian, a Muslim, or a person of another faith, you must be those who are fighting for transformational change. Otherwise, basically, say you're not religious. Right? Because a religious person is a transformer, right? A religion is not a social event where now it's become like we go to church and then some people have found an industry for it. I'm sorry to say this, because basically they've taken advantage of people's ignorance and, and have turned it and monetized. Yes, unfortunately, right? So for me, that's my perspective on these things. But I think it's us to change the narrative, to talk about these things, to do things differently, to show that there's another way. Otherwise, my children and your children will be having this conversation 30 years from now. That time, Joel's son will be in the diaspora. Mami's son will be in South America. And Charmaine's son maybe half Senegalese, half Beninois. They'll be having this conversation. And my son will be still in Ghana, complaining why I did not send him to school in America.
They'll be watching this video.
Yeah, you'll be saying, that video. You see how he used to talk.
But Charles, you are even talking, you are going too far when you say our children, even amongst ourselves. People still want to go and study in the diaspora. When you're applying for jobs and you have a diasporan effect on your CV, that makes you look more appreciated and wanted than a local champion. So you're even going too far if you are thinking about our children's children. What about us now? Like you mentioned, when you see a Harvard on a CV, even us, when you see that somebody went to an Ivy League school, you're like, ooh. And
thank you, Mami, to mention it. Sorry, let me just speak on what you just mentioned. COVID has even brought to their knee those Harvard people. It's time to us to tell ourselves that those we are looking up to, those we are thinking that they have all the solution of the problem, couldn't solve COVID, and they were in the same shit as us. So we should stop thinking that we don't have, they have to teach us. We should understand that we are actually all the same. We can even teach them, and it's time for us to count on ourselves and then sell it to the world. Use this aspect of globalization to teach them instead of using globalization to just receive. And I love the fact that COVID didn't discriminate. Everybody was in the same ship. Everybody was struggling for the same problem. There were no, out the West, we are actually resolving. Let's send 10 billion to Africa to serve the African people to get rid of COVID. No, you had COVID, we had COVID, everybody had COVID. Same line, now start and let's see who survives.
Well, so the only thing preventing us is the melanin.
That's a good point. So I just want to add it, especially when it comes to this education Charles was talking about. I think we really need to take some self-consciousness for us to know what we want. We have forgotten that we don't have the same problem, meaning we don't need the same solution. So different problem with different solution. We are in Africa. Our problem is different from France, America, Asia, Russia problem. But we are going to study the same thing and to come with, we want to solve different problems. which is bad. That's the reason why we are confused in Africa. We are totally confused. You see people to go and learn politics. They come back to Africa and they want to apply the politics that they learned from abroad to African political situation, which is different. And they get confused. So they speak big English, big French when they are in the opposition and when they are doing campaign. But when they are there, the reality becomes totally different because those realities are different from what they learned there. So it's hard time that we start knowing what is our problem, which kind of education we need to address our problem. Because you see, you ask how many graduates we have maybe every year in our country, and ask how many among them did business or did invest whatever we need to develop our country. No, but ask how many of them went to political school. There will be more. Ask how many of them did law. There will be more. But we don't have the people that we really need to face this country, to make the country move forward. And that is very bad. And talking about the religion, thank God COVID has shown us that churches and mosques are not the place where you go and find God. Because when they close now, no, of course, because they have been locked down for how many months, but we still pray at home. So let's understand that religious is not about that building that's over there, and you go there and you pray, and they ask you to pay your tithe or to give some offering or whatever contribution. It's good, but it's not a business. You can still be religious while staying at home, and we should also try to have a new narrative about our perception about religion, how it will benefit us, not destroy us. Is very important, especially when it comes to Africa. Because as Charles was saying, religions in Africa is something like it's even more than the religion that we were having, our forefathers' religion, when they were going to the river there and pray something and come and see the result. Our own is just, I don't know how to define it, but what? I hope we find our way one day. It's crazy.
Anyway, I think we maybe we just need to wrap up with a few things. So I'm thinking like, okay, so COVID has come, and there's this so-called new normal. Now, whoever coined this was quite smart. Okay, so how do we? For me, I don't want us to talk about the how do we? The question is, how do we thrive with a post-COVID, or with COVID as being part of our future? There'll always be the COVID disease may go away, but the COVID implications may never ever go away.
No.
You understand? And there may be other forms of COVID, right? So how do we thrive as an African community in terms of issues of emergency response, in terms of issues of localization? Young people, what should we be focusing on? What should we be doing differently? What are the lessons that COVID should teach us to do things differently? So I just want to go around and just capture everybody's lessons. So maybe Shamrid, we'll start with you.
So what are the lessons for us as countries, as continent, as me as individuals? Because those are three different dynamics. So
yes, all of the above. All the, when we eat, the soup has different types of meat. Don't do one meat here. You can go ahead.
So for us as nations or as continents, I really hope that we are learning from it. I really hope that we are preparing for the future and making sure that where we are shutting fall off, we are putting structure in place so that we can mitigate the current situation and leverage on the possibilities that COVID offers, so that we can thrive, as you said. So it's really, really important that to sit down, reflect, and draw lessons and understand that anything is possible. We should not think that this is the way we are doing stuff. We should keep doing it this way. COVID has come and has disrupted everything. So let's be creative. Let's not stick within a box and be as practical as possible. If the solution needs something, adapt, adjust, and implement it for this solution. And stop saying, no, in Africa, that's how we do. Who could have thought some organization that they will be working remotely? No, they'll be saying that, no, we don't trust people. They need to be in the building and so and so. But now they are doing so. it teaches us that you can do anything depending on your needs. And I hope that as Africans, we are drawing this lesson. And definitely on the sideline, technology is a big thing and will continue becoming bigger. And I hope that we are jumping in the boat or the train before we are left out.
Any lessons learned?
I think when we talk about lessons learned or anything that's happened from COVID-19, this situation that we've known in 2020, people talk a lot about the future of work. I'm not as optimistic that there's going to be this huge change when it comes to the future of work, especially in our context in Africa. Do you know what percentage of our populations are in the formal economy? Small. It's a minority. Those of us here that can sit on our computers and call that work, we are privileged, and this is a minority. It's small. The majority of our people are in the informal economy, and these are people that cannot self-isolate and call that work. It's just not going to work. So I don't foresee major disruptions when it comes to the future of work in our context. But I think one major thing from this whole thing is just the disruption in general, period. That disruption, the fact that there has been a disruption, that things, the way we knew them, came not to be, and that there were changes and we had to adapt. And knowing that this is possible, I think for me, that is the most important thing. And for us as young people, knowing that we can do things differently is amazing. Just that in that light bulb in our minds, setting it off, for me, is like where we need to start. That's the most important thing that came out of this whole situation. So.
Excellent, Martel. Joel, any lessons you've learned that you would like to share?
Yeah, definitely. I think as Martel said, in Africa we may not experience much changes after this COVID, but of course for us, those of us who are in minority that are in the corporate environment, there may be stuff that is going to change. And even in our especially in the government and all the rest, there's stuff that's going to change. To me, I think COVID has, into bracket, reduced a little bit the rate of corruption that we had in our different countries, right? Because of these video conferences and these documents that normally is everywhere there. Like you don't go with a hard paper to meet somebody physically where you can have a physical exchange, and because corruption is present when there's a physical exchange. That's how most time corruption starts. But when there's not physical exchange, most of the time is through paper. Signing are making through paper. Even in our corporate environment, documents are signed through like internet. You sign and you like digital signature, which is very good, which is currently reducing even payment. No more cash running everywhere because of the COVID. That is some impact that I think we continue with it. I don't know the experience that you have about this in your countries, but here, frankly speaking, it has changed a lot of stuff because the physical meeting that people were having has reduced, and the physical money that was running, document that was running has reduced. Everything is now through internet in the corporate world. And when we know when there's something that is going through email, through internet, there's trace. It's something that can easily be traced, like trace. So because of that, you don't want to leave any trace behind. So you make sure that you don't involve yourself into anything called corruption that may actually affect you later. So I think that would be one of the positive aspects that will also affect our corporate environment. But of course, for the young people, this has demonstrated that young people have initiative and they can bring something on board. So it's true that after COVID, if our government and our people, those who are investing, are conscious about what they have seen so far, they will be willing to invest in young people. They will be willing to trust young people, to ask young people to bring more innovative ideas, which government can invest into to make the country move forward. So it's going to be something very dynamic, something that we use it. But unfortunately in Africa, we used to be very much excited when there's an issue, but once the issue is over, we forget about what happened and we continue with our former behavior, which is very bad. I hope at the end of COVID will not be like that, but it will be a changing. We pick all what is positive from COVID and we move on with that.
Thanks so much, Joel. Thanks for that. Mami, any thoughts on lessons that you have learned that you love to share?
Well, the lessons that I have learned would be in one aspect that we should in Africa we have all that it takes to do make a difference, and that we should work with what we have. We've seen with all the innovations that we've all highlighted in this conversation, and how we were able to do it just with the little resources that we had at our disposal. Hence, this should inform us that it isn't the fact that something comes from um, outside Africa that makes it good. We ourselves, as Africans, have very good quality products, quality innovations, quality ideas that if we supported, if we believed in as much as we believed what came out from the foreigners, for lack of a better word, it would work. For example, if we believe that in Guinea there are people who can make oxygen ventilators, a long time ago we would have rallied onto them and would have saved ourselves a lot of money. If we in Ghana believe that we had scientists. Now, Noguchi is one of the most sought after um, scientific or center in Ghana, and I'm sure across the world or across the region. We do have the technical know-how. We do have the expertise. In terms of us in the minority, like Mattel mentioned, we have to recognize that technology has come to stay. We should adapt to technology. We always do not have to leave papers, print things, and not be eco-friendly. We also have to recognize that working remotely and digitalization is a way to go. The fact that somebody comes to the office to sit doesn't necessarily mean connote productivity, because we've always had that notion that the fact that somebody is sitting presently before you means that they are making strides in their various work fronts, which has COVID-19 has come to showcase that it's not really the case. And you will see that the trend is changing, and there are a lot of people that are working remotely and will continue to work remotely, where now geographical space or your geography is not going to be a hindrance. Also, in
Yeah.
terms of education, not even formal, we need to recognize that we would need to reorient ourselves on the way we think, reorient ourselves on the way we handle things, and that we need to move with the times. That's what I've learned, because when COVID-19 came, the COVID wasn't waiting for anybody to get ready before it attacked you. And so we need to move with the times. When we have issues in Africa, we've seen that we have a lot of issues. We should tackle it. We shouldn't wait to go for all these high level meetings, high level conferences to have solutions when we ourselves have the ability to do so. So this has shown us that we have what it takes to make the changes and surmount the challenges that we have. Let's rally on it. Let's stop demeaning ourselves and underrating ourselves. Let's also realize that when we go on the global front, we bring value to the table. We need to recognize that we also have value. We need to also voice it out. There's a difference between having the value and knowing it and not being able to couch it. We need to, when we go for all these meetings, we go to all these global spaces, make ourselves as Africans felt, because actually people feel like Africa is the last card for the West. And you'd realize that most of the people in the West are coming back to Africa, with China coming to make connections here and there, and other people. So we have what it takes. We have value. Let's recognize it. The others have recognized it. It's up to us to recognize it and move with it. And in us recognizing that we have value, it will redefine how we tell our story and how we seem like beggars when we go on the global front. We are not begging. We are also valuable. We're also bringing something to the table.
Mm.
Thank you. Thank you. That was excellent. That was excellent. Thanks, everybody, for this really amazing conversations with old friends, old colleagues. Really excited to see everybody's doing well amidst the disruption, as Mattel put it. Yeah. And just what Mami said ended it, I think, very beautifully. That we should recognize that in this year of COVID, that we have what? We have value, right?
Value.
We have value. And it's value that people buy, and it's value that we should sell, and that we all have comparative advantages. But the question is, are we leveraging on that comparative advantage, right? So as young people, young Africans, it's time we leverage on it. It's time for us to go out there and claim our spaces. You know, I still hear complaints from a lot of young people that even with these within these times, even though we've had a lot of engagement with government, they still don't want to give us the space. The truth is, power never gives you space, right? Space chases power. So you go and create your own space and you sit there. You create your own door, you open it, take your chair with you, like some of our leaders do when they get new appointments. they take their chairs with them for other reasons. We all know. they take their chairs with them. And go and sit there and say that, look, I'm also in this space, right? So it's been really great having this conversation with you guys. And God bless you. And let's keep in touch, guys. We are not strangers. At least we can meet each other.
Yeah.
In this new normal.
You
So
should
thanks
do
a
this
lot,
again
guys.
sometime.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks a
you.
lot.
I think we should do another one on education, and if we were to think about how to disrupt our education systems, what that would look like, you know?
No, that would be excellent.
Just like dream big.
No, it's a topic that we really need to dig deeper, and I think there's too much surface. There's been too much surface talk on education.
Yeah.
Don't forget that our first
reform is
topic
not really happening.
Don't forget that our first topic as a decision was on education, Ghana, right? I think we predicted a lot of stuff that are happening now.
I
think we need to go back to that video. And
after 3 years of free SHS in Ghana.
I know. I don't want to talk about it. But hopefully in the next one, we have our godfather, Leanne, joining us, and that'll be interesting.
Yes.
That'll be interesting.